Zara Benson's life wasn't glamorous. As a junior architect at a prestigious firm, she often felt invincible. Her work was overshadowed by senior colleagues, and despite her talent, she was constantly assigned mundane tasks. She had once dreamed of designing skyscrapers, reshaping the city skyline with her name boldly attached to projects. But those dreams seemed to slip further away each day. Our tiny rundown apartment was a constant reminder of our struggles. The faucet dripped, and the flickering light cast dull shadows across our walls, creating an oppressive atmosphere. How did I get stuck here? She often asked. Worse still, Zara's relationship with her mother, Margaret, was a distant. Margaret had always been more concerned with appearances than emotional connection. Her support, when it came, felt cold and mechanical. Whenever Zara tried to talk about her struggles or emotions, Margaret would shift the conversation to something trivial, leaving Zara feeling more isolated. Her best friend Emily was her saving grace, full of energy and unfiltered positivity. Emily always knew how to lift Zara's spirit. They would meet regularly at their favorite coffee shop, where Emily would insist Zara was destined for great things. One Friday morning, while sitting in her cluttered apartment, Zara received an email with the subject line regarding the estate of Charles Benson. Zara almost deleted it. Spam, for sure, she thought, her finger hovering over the trash icon. Why would her great uncle, a man she barely knew, leave her anything? They hadn't spoken in years, but something stopped her. Maybe it was curiosity or the strange sense that her life was about to change. She opened the email. It was brief and formal. Her great uncle Charles had passed away, and to her shock, he had left her his entire estate, a grand mansion, a failing real estate company, and a sizable fortune. The catch, she had to live in the mansion for a full year and successfully turn the business around, or else everything would be donated to charity. A mansion, a company, and a fortune? At the coffee shop, Zara shared the strange news with Emily, whose eyes widened with excitement. Zara, this is huge, Emily said, nearly spilling her latte. A mansion, a company, and even a fortune. This is like something out of a movie. I'm not ready for this, Zara muttered, her voice shaking. I don't know anything about running a business. What if I ruin everything? Emily's smile didn't waver. You always figure things out, my friend. This is your chance to get out of that apartment and make something good of yourself. What's the worst that could happen? Zara sighed, though Emily's optimism made her feel a little lighter. But the weight of responsibility still hung heavily on her. It was an opportunity too big to ignore, and deep down, she knew she had to try. The following Monday, Zara found herself in her great uncle's old office, a grand room lined with bookshelves and wood paneled. Mr. Collins, her great uncle's lawyer, sat across her. He was a sharp eyed man in his 50s, with a crisp suit and an air of professionalism that bordered on cold. The estate includes the Benson's mansion, located just outside the city, and Benson Real Estate, which is currently facing financial difficulties, Mr. Collins said, his voice calm and steady. If you fail to turn the business around within a year, the entire estate will be donated to charity. Zara's stomach churned. Why would he leave this to me? I barely knew him, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Collins gave her a small, unreadable smile. Your great uncle believed in your potential, Miss Benson. He saw you as the only one capable of continuing his legacy. Believed in my potential? Zara couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. But in the end, she signed the papers. The opportunity was enormous, even if it came with a mountain of challenges. That night, she called her mother to share the news. hoping for some encouragement. Charles always liked your grand gesture, Margaret said flatly. But that mansion comes with more problem than you realize. Just be careful, Zara. Margaret's response stung more than Zara wanted to admit. She had hoped for a moment of connection, but her mother's coldness was a familiar wall she couldn't break through. Why had I even bothered? Zara thought, hanging up the phone with sigh. The next morning, Zara packed her belongings and drove to the Benson's mansion. As she passed through the iron gates, her heart pounded. The mansion loomed ahead, its ivy covered stone walls towering over her. Tall windows lined the exterior, and the garden, though overgrown, hinted at a once beautiful landscape. Mrs. Harris, the housekeeper, greeted her at the door, a stern woman in her 60s. Mrs. Harris had sharp features and an air of authority. Welcome, Miss Benson, Mrs. Harris said with a stiff smile. It's been a long time since anyone had lived here. I'll be available for you if you need anything. Though Mrs. Harris was polite, there was something unsettling about her. She moved silently through the house, always appearing when Zara least expected it. The mansion itself, with its grand always and elegant furniture, felt cold, as though it still belonged to someone else. That night, Zara lay in her four-poster bed, unable to sleep. The moonlight cast long shadows across the room, and just after midnight, she heard the faint sound of footsteps outside her door. She sat up, her heart pounding. Is someone there? She whispered into the darkness. The footsteps stopped, and after a few moments, all was silent again. Old houses make strange noise. Zara tried to convince herself, but sleep was elusive. The next morning, Zara found Mrs. Harris dusting the grand staircase. Did you hear anything last night? Like footstep? Zara asked, her voice tentative. Mrs. Harris gave her a sharp look. This has a long history, Miss Benson. Sometimes history doesn't stay in the past. Zara shivered, unsure whether Mrs. Harris was warning her or merely being critic. Either way, she pushed the thoughts aside and focused on the monumental task ahead, saving Benson Real Estate. When Zara walked into the office of Benson Real Estate, it was immediately clear that the company was on the brink of collapse. Papers were scattered across desks, and the employees moved with a mixture of panic and resignation. It was a chaos. She was introduced to Michael Grant, the head of operations. He was a man in his early 40s, with a stern face and piercing eyes that studied her coldly. I don't know why you are here, Michael Grant said bluntly, barely shaking her hands. The company is in serious trouble, and we don't need an inexperienced architect making things worse. Zara felt her stomach knot at his hostility, but she met his gaze with determination. I have experience in real estate, Mr. Michael, but I'm not here to watch the company fail, he said. Michael's eyes flickered with an hint of surprise at her boldness, but his expression remained hard. We'll see about that. Zara knew she had a long road ahead. The staff was divided. Some respected her position as the new owner, while others clearly sided with Michael, who had expected to take control after Charles' death. The tension in the office was palpable, and Zara often felt like she was walking into a battlefield every day. The next few weeks, Zara struggled to get handle on the company's finances and operations. Michael undermined her at every turn, making it difficult for her to gain traction. Some employees refused to follow her instructions, and the weight of responsibility pressed down on her more heavily than ever. Every evening, she stayed late at the office, poring over financial records and trying to find a way to stabilize the sinking ship. The pressure was immense, and and she often felt like she was drowning in a sea of paperwork, debts, and office politics. One evening, Zara flipped through financial documents. Something strange caught her eyes. Large sum of money had been funneled into offshore accounts, had been embezzling funds from the company for years. Zara's mind raced. Could it be Michael? His opposition towards me is so personal, so calculated. But what if it was someone else? Zara thought. To get to the bottom of the mystery, Zara began investigating the company's past. Late one night, she decided to search her great uncle's private office in the mansion. Sifting through dusty drawers, she found a locked one. She eventually managed to open it with an old key she had found, tucked away in a corner of the desk. Inside were stacks of letters and confidential documents. The letters revealed a shocking family feud. Her great uncle Charles and her father had once been business partners. The relationship had soured after a betrayal that had torn the family apart. Zara's father had walked away from the business, leaving Charles to run it all alone. One letter hinted at a secret involving financial misconduct that had nearly destroyed the company years ago. Could it be connected to the current embezzlement? The next morning, Zara confronted Michael with the evidence she had found. He denied everything. His expression was cold and unyielding. You have no idea what you are dealing with, he said, his voice low and threatening. This company is mine. Your uncle was a fool thinking you could save it. Zara stood her ground, pounding. I know what you have done, Michael. I'm going to fix this company, with or without you. Days passed. Zara continued to uncover more about the company's shady financial dealings, but she also began to win over some of the staffs. Emily's constant encouragement and Mrs. Harris' quiet support helped her keep going, even when the weight of responsibility seems unbearable. But the strange happenings in the mansion didn't stop. Every night, Zara heard faint sounds of footsteps outside her room, and objects seemed to move on their own. At first, she tried to brush it off as an imagination, but as the incident became more frequent, she couldn't ignore the eerie feeling that something or someone was watching her. One night, Zara found Mrs. Harris in the hallway, staring at the portrait of Charles Benson that hung on the wall. He was a good man, Mrs. Harris said softly, her voice filled with sorrow. But this family, there are secrets buried here. Miss Benson, be careful what you dig up. Zara frowned. What do you mean? Mrs. Harris didn't answer directly. Instead, he handed Zara an old key. This key opens the door in the east wing. You will find what you are looking for there. Zara felt a chill run down her spine as she took the key. That night, she unlocked the door in the east wing and found a small hidden room filled with more documents, letters, and even audio recordings. They confirmed her suspicions. Michael had been embezzling money for years, and Diana had been in on the scheme. Zara knew she had enough evidence to take them both down, but she also realized that uncovering these secrets would mean exposing her family's darkest history. In the end, Zara made the decision to confront Michael and Diana directly. With the documents, she called a meeting with the board of directors and laid out everything she had discovered. The fallout was swift. Michael and Diana were both removed from their positions, and Zara was finally able to take full control of the company. The year that followed was the hardest of her life, but it was also the most rewarding. Zara transformed Benson Real Estate into a thriving business, earning the respect of her employees and proving to herself and the world that she was more than capable of carrying on her great uncle's legacy. In the end, Zara realized that the true inheritance wasn't the money or the mansion, but the strength and resilience she had discovered within herself. Zara's journey from uncertainty to triumph was nothing short of extraordinary, but every family has hidden stories, and every legacy comes with its own challenges. If you enjoyed this story and crave more tales filled with suspense, ambition, and resilience, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification so you never miss a new story. We would love to hear your thoughts below. What do you think Zara's next move should be? Or if you were in her shoes, what choices would you make? Share your ideas and let's dive into conversation. Naija Life Story, bringing life to every tales. Thanks for watching. Bye.